Okay, Grasshopper architecture. The wording is not quite all right because it is an architecture that used Grasshopper, Rhino, and who knows what other digital technologies. But before we start showing some examples of architecture where Grasshopper was used, I would like to mention this architect who is a principal founder of SHOP. Actually, SHOP is written with a small o, a very successful architecture firm in the United States, in New York. Greg Pasquarelli, when he was asked, and he's a famous architect now, and they build impressive buildings. He was asked in 2018, so that is 5 years ago, what do you recommend architects and students in architecture? And he said, on one hand, history, theory, philosophy, and on the other hand, the highest, the most sophisticated digital, softwares or technologies. And I will start by showing an early work of this firm and Greg Pasquarelli. They were very young. They were almost your age. Dunescape, which was exhibited at PS1 in Queens, New York, part of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. This was many years ago, I don't know, about 25 years ago, or maybe even more. But I want to stress that it's possible to be very creative and still so-called human using the digital technologies. In the year 2000, so it was 23 years ago, the Museum of Modern Art began its Young Architects program, a competition to imagine an installation in the forecourt of its PS1 Art Center in Queens. As the winner that inaugural year, SHOP created an immersive environment that invited visitors to gather, linger, and inhabit the institution in new ways, as well as serving as the centerpiece for Warm Up, an infamous series of summertime raves. Responding to the modest budget and the need for very rapid construction by an unskilled labor force, in parentheses, our friends, this is the text of the architects, and it's beautiful. They built it with their friends. We use the digital tools of the day, meaning 2000s, to not only imagine a novel form, but also to optimize it into something that could be very efficiently built. And you are going to see it, the day of the opening, the structure is behind. And what's very interesting, it doesn't look now like a, computational architecture, so to speak. It looks almost like a primitive thing, but it was done digitally. And here you see the proof. I find it very beautiful because in a way it's about primitive futures. They used whatever was high technology in the year 2000s. These were young architects. They just finished the master at Columbia University, and they built it themselves. Instead of producing traditional blueprints that represent a design without describing its method of construction, for Dunescape, we, meaning the architects, devised a novel system that output digital information as one-to-one template drawings that could be used directly as tools in the assembly. And here you see, either the architects or the friends or both working on this, trying to bring together these elements made of wood. And I think they did a beautiful thing because it's not a Cartesian structure. It's free. It has an expression, an architectural expression. It is an adventure, in other words. So Dunescape inspired what has become SHOP's signature approach to construction technology, working to eliminate the unnecessary barriers between imagination and realization that have always complicated the process of creating great architecture. Arranged and assembled thoughtfully with our digital tools, simple, authentic materials can be used to achieve surprisingly sophisticated spaces and effects. And here it is, using digital technology. I have the highest respect for Kenneth Frampton, but I do not agree with him that the computer destroyed architecture. No, I wouldn't say so. It has its limit, it has its problems, but it also has its power and its potential. And of course, this could have been done also kind of like an ad hoc architecture, spontaneously, but it's even more beautiful somehow that it was done rigorously, digitally, mathematically, but the effect is that it's spontaneous, it's organic. So this is not a little thing. And here other people enjoying the opening of the show of this pavilion they built. Now they build unbelievable skyscraper shop. So please check out their names on Google Images and their website. Okay, so this is a first example where digital technology was used to create an architecture that is indeed creative. Now we arrive at this German architect who is our contemporary and who built this amazing, actually, structure called Metropol Parasol, the redevelopment of the Plaza de la Encarnacion in Seville, in Spain, which became the new icon for Seville, a place of identification and to articulate Seville's role as one of the world's most fascinating cultural destinations. And here it is, and it was built, yes, using Grasshopper. The critics of digital technology should think twice, because it does have its power, and it certainly allows for creativity. I mean, look, this thing that was built here by Jürgen Meyer, H, or Hash, I mean, this is his name. There is an H at the end of his name. He created something that is in contrast with the urban fabric, and they enhance each other. And it's good that they enhance each other. The dialectics of the dialogue between the old and the new are fresh and invigorating. So, this is not an architecture to put you to sleep. It's an architecture to provoke you and to make you feel alive and to aspire to, to do yourself creative things. Look at the building on the left and look at the building built by Jürgen Meyer using, again, Grasshopper. So, dear students, please study seriously and intensely Grasshopper, Rhino, Houdini, Maya. There are many softwares now that could help you to envision things that, without these softwares probably wouldn't even cross your mind. So look at the building from the top. It's an architecture of courage, a vision. Okay, you could criticize it if you want for who knows what, but you cannot criticize it for, putting you to sleep. It doesn't. It wakes you up, actually, and it wakes you up because it's about freedom. An architecture, from time to time at least, should advocate just this, freedom. So, here you have the powerful technology of today conspiring against conformism, against the bourgeois, against predictability, and so on, in the hands of an architect from Germany, Jürgen Meyer. We go quickly because we have a lot to see, but I do think that this is a remarkable work in a, courageous city, Seville. And again, here we have technology showing clearly that it's possible to be creative and also rigorous, free and also, rigorous. Grasshopper. The potential is very, very high, but you have to be very well prepared in order to, be able to activate the machine to achieve a freedom which, without the machine, you might have actually difficulties to arrive at. I'm not saying it's impossible, but, the machine could sometimes help you. And strangely, it could help you to humanize yourself. I saw yesterday a poster from what's his name? This architect from Great Britain. I'm getting old and I'm beginning to forget names. Um, I better not get into this, but I did play with the word because he published a book. I'm only thinking of Hans Meyer because I will make a presentation on Hans Meyer now, but it's not Hans Meyer. Anyway, the gods are punishing me for trying to do too many things. He talked about humanizing, and I played with the word. If you replace the N with an M and the M with an N, you get a or I don't know how to pronounce very well in English, hunamize, deriving the word from hun, the nomadic aggressive population, which actually worked to dehumanize the world, or at least Europe. Anyway, the section through the building in Seville by Jürgen Mayer. And, you could say this is utopia. It's not utopia. It was built. It functions. The people enjoy themselves around the building and around this sculptural canopy and so on. You would say this is a Wiener archigram. Well, it's not. It's built in Seville, and it was built recently. Now we go to something else by the same architect, Jürgen Mayer, also using Grasshopper. It is a sculpture, but it's almost architecture. In Georgia, Georgia was wise enough to commission this architect to build several buildings. I only show this, sculpture that he did, a signage, also done with Grasshopper. So it is almost inhabitable, or at least you could, maybe it's possible to actually, climb, upstairs with a stair that I hope is there because it's quite big. Anyway, Jürgen Mayer, Grasshopper, and that's why I chose this example too. Now we arrive at a very interesting work, and I admire this work. And it seems that the actual creator of this work is the last person mentioned here after the plus, Igor Pantic. Anyway, this man, I think he did all the work and the others took the glory, the steampunk pavilion. He is probably a very young man, maybe an immigrant somewhere in England, getting tolerated in the office, and he created this using Grasshopper. Now you tell me if you can do something like this with conventional means. It's impossible. I mean, you can create a basket, small dimensions, but not a structure of this, of this size. And I find it beautiful because it is turbulent. It's about turbulence, architectonic turbulence. It's amazing that the machine helped Igor and that office to create this thing, which was built. The truth of the matter is these softwares, if you use them creatively, they could help you a lot to infuriate people who are jealous of creativity, who are jealous of the artists, who are jealous of those who express themselves with courage and enthusiasm and exuberance. Bravo to Igor, and bravo to this office. I don't know, but in some places I saw this pavilion connected with this man. I mean, with the last person in that assemblage of several names. Anyway, it's handmade, but it's handmade based on a model that was generated through Grasshopper and Rhino, and who knows what else he used. I mean, I do think that Daniel Lipskin was right, that architecture is not actually about bricks, stones, materials, formulas, technologies, industries, but about wonder. Yes, about wonder. And if you don't create wonder, what do you actually create? Here it's a quest for the unknown, for wonder. And yes, it's a knot. You know, some people will say, what is this? Well, it's good that this question pops up. What is this? We don't know. It's a turbulence. It's an architectonic sculptural turbulence done with Grasshopper. So, moving forward, uh, there are many examples. This is just the first session on this subject, Grasshopper architecture, or Grasshopper in architecture, or Grasshopper and architecture. And you see here, I like, again, the dialectics of this picture. You see the spire of the old church, and then you see the new structure, that, you know, the vortex, the turbulence of Igor, I forgot his last name. Anyway, I find it enticing and provocative, and I think we need more architecture that is enticing and provocative. I mean, compare this with what is behind. Yes, behind there are so-called functional buildings, but they are boring like hell. Sorry for being so abrupt. Now, the absolute towers, again, with Med Architects, many of the works are using you know, the fluidities of contemporary technology. But in this particular case, it's very clear that they used Grasshopper and Rhino, and they built these towers in Toronto, in Canada, but I don't think, I don't know if it is in Toronto. I should have double checked. Anyway, they are remarkable because they were inspired actually by that famous photograph of Marilyn Monroe. And these were very young architects at that time. You know, I mean, I love this. I mean, young architects should have courage and should be inventive and should provoke the world with their vision. You know, but without knowledge of digital technology, they could not have done this. You see the buildings on the right, and you see the buildings built by Med Architects. And they had communism too. You know, I mean, they came from China. Now China had Mao, a very, very restrictive and even tragic communism now. And yet, look at them, Chinese young architects from China building these things. Well, thanks to the technology with the T-square and the rectangle, you cannot make something like this. It's impossible. You can make the buildings around them with the T-square and the rectangle, but not the absolute towers by Med Architects. And here you see each plan is positioned a little bit differently based on the ellipse. So again, here you need the computational power of you know, sophisticated technology, and they did it, and it was built as you saw it clearly. It's not just a you know, a fantasy. Now, big Bjarke Ingels, he couldn't miss the boat, right? Serpentine Pavilion. Well, here he is again, Grasshopper. You know, I mean, okay, it is not one of my preferred architectures, but still an interesting work, very rigorous and sinuous. And so the unreason or the irrationality of life and aesthetics are present, and yet they are controlled by the power of the vision, but also the power of the technology they used. Otherwise, this thing could not have been built. Look at it. It's where are the columns? Where are the vertical columns without which we suffocate and we seem unable to live? Well, there are no columns. It's self-supporting. And here is the architect, the proud young architect, who still astonishes us from time to time with his creations. And he has all the reasons to have a certain satisfaction on his face. There were also 4 summer houses. I only show one near this pavilion. Here also was used Grasshopper to craft the, you know, the Baroque entanglements at the top. You know, the truth of the matter is the machine and the software allows you to express degrees of freedom unthinkable with traditional modes of conceiving architecture. Now we arrive at this very interesting work, the next architecture, the Times Eureka Pavilion. The architects are called, they call themselves next architecture. The T is missing, but you can almost hear it or see it. And look at this. Again, this software, because this is the reason we talk about Grasshopper and architecture, this software was not made in order to make the same things that we make traditionally, either manually or with less audacious softwares, but to make a different kind of architecture. And that's what we see here. It is the freedom that allows you to welcome accident or aleatory configurations. In other words, to control freedom. I mean, not to control, to make freedom, the freedom of expression, feasible. And it is feasible. It was built. Look at this, all these parts. If you would have tried to do this manually, you would have collapsed, of course. It was built. And it was built because the architects employed this powerful technology. And I like the fact that this medium doesn't actually restrict. You would say, okay, it's an artificial tool, and the artificial tool forces you to be rigid. No, quite the opposite. I mean, you saw the absolute towers by Med architects, or you saw, the previous examples that I showed. There is freedom to be obtained through the means of these programs. And yeah, I think this pavilion is not so original. I mean, Toyo Ito did something similar previously, but this one is very convincing, and I think it's even more intricate than the building built by Toyo Ito. So, forgive me, my voice is having some problems, but my enthusiasm doesn't have problems. It's still here. It's still there. So let's prepare ourselves, because these tools are not to be ignored. If you know how to work with them. And I think, to end with the beginning, Greg Pasquarelli was right. A good architect today should, on one hand, know theory, philosophy, history, and on the other hand, the newest digital technologies. What he is good at, and also his company, they also value a lot construction. They even have a construction company themselves. They build certain things, models, the scale 1:1, in order to verify the validity of, the so-called concepts. So I am a great advocate of the present. I even thought, to launch a lab called Azilab, AZILAB, which in Romanian means a laboratory of today. No, thank you.